Which video should I record next? Let me read the comments. Magnets Media, Sakleen Khan. Okay, this is good. Sakleen.
Daddy, when you will edit my video?
Which video, dear?
Rapunzel.
Oh, that one. I will edit it soon. Don't worry. Now go from here.
Rapunzel. Nobody knows how many times a story of Rapunzel has been told. Once upon a time, in a land where magic danced on every breeze, there lived a young girl named Rapunzel. Hidden away in a tower with no doors and only a single window, Rapunzel's world was one of solitude and longing. Her hair, as golden as the sun's first light, flowed endlessly like a river of silk. Each strand held the power of healing, a gift as mysterious as it was extraordinary. Though confined to her tower, Rapunzel's spirit remained unbroken. Little did she know, her destiny was about to change forever. As the fates would have it, a brave soul was drawn to her and set the stage for a tale of courage, hope, and unwavering love. Published in 1812, Rapunzel is a German fairy tale most notably recorded by the Brothers Grimm, but also said to be a work of two other creators. Its cultural legacy is spread across all kinds of literature, art, movies, and animation. Rapunzel is a journey from darkness to light, where the power of love and the strength of dreams create a legacy transcending time.
Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Naresh, and in today's video we will be doing the editing breakdown of Sakleen Khan's first video. The video which took the algorithm by storm. 3.1 million views and more than 2 lakh subscribers in just one video. In today's video I will demonstrate all the techniques that he has used to edit his first video. I will not recreate his video, but I am going to demonstrate all the process so that you can use it for any script. Not just editing. This video is having everything. Remember that. So as they say, anyone can edit, but only few can think like an editor. This video is the perfect example of content is the king and the emotion is the queen. Without further delay, let's get started. Alright, now I am in my After Effects and you can see here how I have organized my folders, and it is of paramount importance for a large project to stay organized. So the first technique that we are going to use is the parallax effect or 3D camera movement. We will use this image for that. I have generated it using Microsoft AI. Now everyone knows how it works, so you write the prompt and it will generate a pretty impressive image for you. Now to create the fake 3D effect, we have to separate characters in the image as separate layers using Photoshop or similar software. So using Photoshop, I am going to separate the main character Rapunzel and the rest of the image as separate layers. Let us open Photoshop and quickly demonstrate how to separate layers and prepare a background using the clone tool. This is the original image that I have downloaded and expanded using generative AI. So this is the image we are using right now, and we will separate this character from the image. Select this pen tool to create a mask around the image or any object you want to separate. So let's zoom it and create the mask. The cleaner the mask, more it will look realistic. After finishing the mask creation, right click and make a selection. Choose feather radius amount to 0.5 or so and click OK. Press Command or Ctrl+J to separate the layer selected. Now we can see the isolated image here. Now from this image, we can remove this part that is being left. By selecting it using a mask, and then inverting the mask from the select menu and pressing the Command or Control plus J to separate the layer selected. Now you can see it is perfectly removed. Now we don't need this, so hide it. Now select the magnetic lasso tool to quickly select this character, and after that go to select and inverse it and use Command or Control plus J to separate it. So we have this image now. We can fill this gap using the cloning tool. So select this clone tool, go to image and keep pressing the Option or Alt key to select the area you want to clone. Release it over the blank area or the area where you want to apply. And by holding the right click and moving the mouse, you can apply the area you have selected to this empty area. You can increase or decrease the size by using the bracket key. Don't worry if you are not able to precisely clone it, as this background is going to be hidden behind our main character during the animation. Alright, done. So this is how we can separate the characters from the image using Photoshop. Now we can rename this layer as you wish. Save it as a PSD file. Now import the PSD file to After Effects and keep this setting. So it has created this composition. Click and open it. This is our main character. Let us rename it, and this is our background layer. Select these two layers, copy them and paste them into a new composition. So let's create it. Rename it as Master 9020 by 1080 and 10 seconds would be enough. Paste those two layers here. You can rename them if you want to pick them up correctly later on. Right click and add a new camera. I'm going with 50 mm. Right click and add a new null object. And convert all the layers into 3D, including the null. If you don't find this option here, click on this toggle switches mode. Parent camera with null, as we will animate the camera using null. Let us switch to two views. Now I am moving this character by holding it using Z-axis to here, close to the camera. Now move the background away from the camera here. Also scale it to fill the screen. Now this will be the final position we want in our scene. So move your playhead to around 3 seconds and press R on the keyboard. And by holding Shift, press P on the keyboard. Now add a keyframe to all the properties. Alright, so this is our final position in the scene. Now move back to starting and use the Z-axis to zoom. Okay, so this is how it will look. If you want, you can also slightly change orientation by changing this value here. So this is the first scene we have created, known as the 3D camera or parallax effect. Let us first organize ourselves. Now we want to add this logo and animate it so it appears behind the main character, just like it's shown in the Shaklin Khan's video. So let us add it here between the background and Rapunzel layer. Let us convert it to 3D. Let us change the position to here. Now this is our background and this is the character layer. So we can now move forward with our logo and place it over here. And let us scale it down. Alright, now let's animate it. So somewhere around here, we can bring it and animate it. So select it, hit P for the position and add a keyframe to it. This will be the final position, so add a keyframe here at around 2 seconds. Come back to 1 second and change the position to down here. Select both the keyframes and press F9 for easy ease. I'm also adding rotation to the logo. Press R for the rotation and keyframe to it. Move the playhead here and add 1. So it will complete one cycle of rotation. We forgot to centralize the anchor point. So select it, hold the command key and double click this pan anchor point here. So it will shift the anchor point to the center. Press F9 to make it smooth and switch on the motion blur effect. Let us also animate the opacity. So press U to reveal the keyframes, hold Shift and press T for the opacity. Add a keyframe to it, add the value of 100 here and change it to 0 here. So this is how it will look. Now the glow effect. To add it, search glow and add it to the logo layer. I am using this free plugin FX Console to search and add the effect. Deep Glow is the paid plugin that has having a better glow effect than this default. Play around with the radius and intensity to get the desired effect. Try to change the color channel to alpha. If it suits the need, keep it. Now we will add these glass textures over our background layer. So let us put it over here before the background. Convert it to 3D and move its position to just before the background using the two views. Now scale it to fit the screen and change the blending mode to soft light. If this option is not visible, click on the toggle switches mode here. You can reduce the opacity of the texture if it is more intense. So if you have watched carefully Sakleen Khan's video, the main character is highlighted than the rest. Now how we can dim down the background scene so our main character is getting highlighted? There are two ways we can achieve that. So first by adding light and second using the exposure effect. So let me demonstrate the second method first. Right click to add new adjustment layer, rename it as an exposure. Bring it over the background, search for the exposure effect and add it to the layer and reduce the exposure as you like it around -2 or so. Even you can add keyframes and animate the exposure. Okay, let us switch off the exposure layer for now. Now the first method, which uses light. So right click and add light, point light. Place it over here. Change it to two views and change the position of the light. So this is our light. Grab it and drag it over here. Change it back to one view. Click on the point light. Check that fall off is inverse square clamped and change the intensity of the light to around 100 or as per your scene. Play with the radius and you will notice that reducing it leads to a darker background. So this is how we can make our main character stand out. So these are the two methods. I will go with the point light. Alright, another overlay we are going to use is fire particles. So this is the fire particles video that we are going to use here. So let us add this fire particles video here and convert it to 3D. Bring it closer to the camera and change its blending mode to screen. Right click, select time stretch and change it to 200, which will slow it down. Play with the opacity if you prefer less intense particles. Press T and add a keyframe to it. Make it 0, move playhead to here and change it to 70 or 80. So this is how it will look. In Sakleen Khan's video, the main character appears in a black and white. So you can use black and white effect and add over it. You can use an adjustment layer and apply it to make the whole scene black and white. So this is how he has used it. See here. Switch off and switch on. Now add a new adjustment layer and rename it as a Gaussian blur. Search for the Gaussian blur and add on it. Change the blur value to near 20. Now select from here this ellipse tool and double click while the adjustment layer is selected. This will add this elliptical mask over it. You can adjust the size if you wish. Now invert the mask. and bump up the mask feather to 300 or so. Now let's add a camera flash effect. We can do that two ways. The first will be to right click and add a new adjustment layer and rename it as camera flash. Now search for the effect known as exposure and add it to over this layer. Move your playhead to very beginning. Bump it down to almost dark -10 or so and the initial keyframe. Hold the command or control key and press the right arrow once to move one keyframe forward and change the exposure value to 0. Again move one keyframe and change the value to 3 or 4. Again one keyframe and 0. Again one frame forward and 3 or 4 and then 0. Alright, so now if you play it, it will mimic the camera flash. Trim this layer here. The second method, we will use a white solid. Right click and add a white solid. Let's call it camera flash 2. Also trim it here. Now select and copy the exposure keyframe of the first camera flash and paste it to this layer. So this will also mimic camera flash. You can select and move all keyframes closer by keep holding the Alt or Option key and dragging them closer. Trim this layer here. And you can duplicate it and move one layer around here. It will look like this. Now select all these layers and pre-compose them. Call it a 3D camera. Alright, now add a new adjustment layer, add camera lens blur on it, select the 3D camera layer and change the blur radius to 4 or 5 to give some background blur effect. We can also achieve this using camera depth of field from this camera option. We will use that in other scenes. Now the second scene is about this YouTube video playing. Let's create a new composition, name it YT for YouTube. 10 seconds would be enough, click OK. There is one grid background, either you can use grid PNG texture or you can create one in After Effects. For that, add a new black solid, recompose it and call it grid. Open it, search for the grid and add over it. Now you can play with the anchor point to increase or decrease the size of the grid, its border and feather, and even you can animate it. So select this width and height slider, adjust the width and height from here, add a keyframe at the beginning and move a few frames forward, change this first value for vertical grid and let's play. The same can be done for the horizontal or both. So this is how you can animate the grid. To animate it continuously, keep pressing the Option or Alt key and click on this anchor stopwatch. It will open the expression window and write down the loop out. Now it will play non-stop. But we don't need the animation, so I am undoing it. Now convert this grid pre-comp to 3D. Let's change to 2 views, drag this layer too far here and scale it. Now let's add that YouTube video. So this is the YouTube video I have recorded without the sidebar suggested video using the Unhook browser plugin. Okay, so convert it to a 3D layer and scale it down. Now right click and add a new camera. Select this video and add the turbulent displacement effect. Change the amount to 30 and size to 2. It will give you this nice edge around the video. I am trimming this video here and moving it here in the beginning. Right click and add a new adjustment layer and add an elliptical mask by double clicking here. Just like that. Add the Gaussian blur and change the value to 14 or so. Select the mask, invert it and add mask feather to it. Resize the mask by double clicking it. Increase the mask feather. Let me move it slightly here. You can add a wiggle effect to the grid as well as this video. Zoom in and out and change the orientation and it's all up to you. So this video plays up to here, and then we can split it from here using Shift plus Command plus D. Let me take it from here and move it back. Alright, right click and add a null object, convert it to 3D and parent it with the camera. Select null, press R and add keyframes. Also hold Shift and press P for the position and add keyframe to it. Shift these keyframes to here for the first part of the video. Then use the Z axis to zoom it like this so that the whole video almost fills the screen. Change the orientation and position just like this. Select both the keyframes and press F9 for smooth movement. Move your playhead to 7 or 8 seconds and zoom it a little bit like this. We can also add the point light and change its position just like this. So it will add more depth to our scene. So you can use these settings for the light. Fall of inverse square chain, and we can increase the radius and adjust the intensity as per your image and video in the composition and click OK. We can also add a slight zoom to this scene. So add an initial keyframe at the beginning and a slight zoom out so it will have a subtle zoom while it plays. We can also move this keyframe closer just like this. Finally, move this grid layer to the bottom here and slightly move it forward here. We can also add a new adjustment layer and add a CC vignette effect. It's up to you whether you want to add it or not. Alright, so this is the 3D scene I have created using the same technique we learned in the first scene. We will use this during the ink matte practice. Around here 3 or 4 seconds, add a grid we just created. It is between the background and our character. Change to 2 views and convert the grid to a 3D layer. Drag the grid layer holding the Z axis further back. Scale it down and reposition it. Go to grid comp and change the size of the grid. Now here at 3 seconds, trim it. And we can animate the opacity here. Press R on the keyboard and slightly change the orientation for the grid just like that. Add turbulent displacement effect and play around with the amount and size to get the desired look. I am going with 30 and 5 respectively. Now press P for position and keep holding Alt or Option key. Press the stopwatch to open the expression window, then write down the wiggle with values of 1 and 10 or your choice. Press T and animate the opacity. Add a keyframe in the beginning here with 0 value and change it back to 100 here after 12 keyframes. Now add the point light with the previous settings and adjust its position as per your scene. Increase or decrease the radius and play with the intensity. Now select this last background layer, press T for the opacity and add a keyframe matching the opacity keyframe of the grid layer. Move to the second frame and change it to 0. So this is how it will look. If you want, you can mess around with the opacity of the background layer. Okay, now let's adjust our point light. And it is already looking good. Changing the position of the light here. Move the background layer here a little forward. Let us play. And the grid comes here. Now we can add the ink overlay over the grid just like shown in the video. So for that, let's create a new composition. Name it ink. Let's create another composition. Let's call it an image. And add an image to it. Scale it up and adjust the position. Now add this image to the ink composition. Bring the ink spreading MOV file I have provided in the project and change the track matte to the ink layer. If this option is not visible, click on the toggle switches mode button here. Make sure it is inverted Luma matte. So this is how it will appear. We can reduce the scale so it fits well as per the shape of the ink. Adjust the image. Now add a new white solid below here and also change the track matte to ink, just like we did. Now we can add that ink comp here in this ink overlay comp between our character and grid layer. Convert it to 3D. Change it to two views and drag it using Z axis. And put it behind the Rapunzel. Now scale it down and change the position, etc. Then we can duplicate it here at source by Command or Control plus D and replace the image with the different one. You can also replace the different ink overlay pattern. Then add this second ink to comp and adjust its size and position. Alright, now select both the ink comp and move it here, as it should start from here. And move the second layer here after the first one. Now repeat the steps of adding Gaussian blur and vignette using the new adjustment layers. We can also give some subtle movement to the character by adding position keyframes. So one position keyframe here and one here near the end and change the position slightly. Select both the keyframes and press F9. Let's play it. If the wiggle effect is fast, you can modify the value. This tower looks floating because I have not separated the ground layer, but you can do it in Photoshop to achieve a more realistic outcome. Anyway, main thing we have focused here on is how to add the ink overlay like this. The wiggle effect is fast, you can modify the value. Now you can also animate the color of the ink overlay by adding a new red solid to ink comp, putting it here top and blending mode to overlay. Shift it here bottom and change the track matte to Luma. Now change its position here at the top. But we don't want it red at the beginning. So we can simply animate the opacity from 0 to 100 by adding a keyframe here and here. So first it is normal and then red, just like that. Repeat for the ink 2 also. Finally, we can also add the Gaussian blur and vignette effect like we did last time. Alright, so we have completed the ink overlay technique. Now let's learn how to move any parts or object and animate it using a puppet. Alright, so we are going to use this image in which I have separated the layers from the image just like we did in the first scene using Photoshop. Whatever parts you want to animate using a puppet pin for the particular image or scene, it is important that the layer is separated so that we can effectively use the puppet pin tool. In this case, we will move this hair. So I have separated it. Again, you can use the cloning method to fill the background. Let's create a new composition and call it a puppet. Import the Photoshop file we prepared for that. Click this composition. So these are the files. Let's copy it and paste it into the puppet comp. Before we convert layers to 3D, we will animate it using a puppet. So let us select this first hair part, isolate it, and select from here puppet position tool. Add one pin here and add another pin here. Now we will animate it. Move your playhead to the beginning. So press and hold Command or Control key and move this puppet point we want to move or animate. Now move this smoothly in whichever fashion you want that movement. Like in this case, it is a small hair movement side by side. So this will record this movement and it will add keyframes to it. So let's play and see. This is how it is moving. Okay, now similarly add a puppet pin to this other part of the hair. One here and another here. One here and one last here. Let's record the animation. Move your playhead to the beginning, hold the command or control key and move this end in manner you want the final result. I am having a very subtle up and down. Repeat the same for the other parts as well. Let's play it so you can see how nicely the hair is moving. We can also add a loop out expression if the movement recorded is not continuous. Click on the stopwatch icon by holding the Option or Alt key and you will be able to write the expression loop out in the expression window. Okay, undo it as we don't need it here. Alright, we can convert all the layers into 3D and do other animation if we want. Now select this layer, add a glow effect over it and play with the threshold, radius and intensity of the glow. Copy it, paste it to this other layer and adjust it accordingly. For the background, you can use the turbulent displacement. Now select the hair layer and add the wave warp effect. Wave height 5, width 80 and speed 0.5. Let's play. We can increase the width and also bring down the speed to 0.2. Alright, now it looks good. And you can also add the Gaussian blur and the vignette effect using the adjustment layer. Alright, now we will create this scene from the video. To do this kind of animation, we have to prepare our image in Photoshop just like I have demonstrated in the first scene. Using the pen tool to create a mask and separate the layers. Once you complete that task, it will look like this. The head appears as a two separate layers in the upper and lower half. You can use any background that matches the scene. So let us import the file in After Effects and animate it. Create a new composition, name it Witch Head, and import the PSD file. Let's double click and open it. Copy these three layers from it and paste them into our composition. You can see here that the head is now made up of two separate layers. Also add the background layer. We also need this image to put inside the head. So import it and add it here. Recompose it and rename it as an EV. Open it and add a new white solid to it. Select the elliptical mask and add over it by holding Shift so that a rounded mask will be added. Bring down the layer scale and resize it as per the head size. Zoom it and adjust the size. Now shift this layer behind the head layer. Alright, now if I press R on the keyboard and rotate it, it will move around its central angle. So we have to change the anchor point in a way that it will be rotate around its corner. Select the layer and click on the span behind the tool. So you will be able to move the anchor point and place it wherever you want. In this case here, from where we want to be rotated. Now try to rotate. See, perfect. That is exactly what we wanted. So the knowledge of the anchor point and shifting them to the desired place before rotation is an important concept in animation. Now we can pre-compose these three layers, Witch and the pre-comp, and rename it as a Witch Head. Alright, first we will animate the scene and then we will animate the head open. So convert all the layers to 3D and add a new 35mm camera. Right click and add the new null object, convert it to 3D and parent camera with null. Press P for position and keep holding shift, press R and add all the initial keyframes. Alright, change it to 2 views and move the background layer here. Scale. Also moving the Rapunzel forward close to the camera, just like this. Adjust her a little bit here. Also drag this layer and adjust it here, just like this, holding the Z axis. Alright, now move forward to 2 seconds or so and zoom into the mother by changing this X, Y and Z axis here. Also change the orientation from here. Just like this. Perfect. Now we can animate the head open. Select these 2 keyframes, press F9 for ease and open the graph editor by grabbing the handle. Make this curve look like this. So it will start fast and end slow, like this. Okay, so we can animate head opening at this point here. So open this comb, press R on the keyboard and add a keyframe to rotation. Move 5 seconds or so and rotate it, just like that. Select keyframes and press F9 and open the speed graph to edit it like this. Okay, so it looks good. Now to close it back, add the initial keyframe here and move slightly forward around 2 seconds and change the rotation to 0. It's done. Now open the evil comp and add the wiggle effect by writing the wiggle expression. So by holding the option or alt key, click the position. So the expression window will open. And write down the wiggle expression 2 and 5. Also add a glow effect to this evil comp and adjust the radius and intensity. Deep Glow is a very suitable plugin for such a thing, but it costs a lot. Anyway, this will work too. Also add a wiggle expression to the witch and Rapunzel layer. Add the point light with these settings and change to 2 views. Now we want that when the head is opening, Rapunzel to become dark. Just like this. This much. Now press P for the position and add the initial keyframe here. Move the playhead here, the beginning, and bring the light to its original position. Adjust the light intensity and this is how it will play. Adjust the speed graph after applying Easy Ease using the F9 key. Now I will demonstrate how we can apply the depth of field using the camera property. As I said at the beginning of the video, select the camera and go to the camera option. Now we are going to play with the focus distance and aperture to create depth and blur. Make sure the depth of field is on. If not, do so by clicking on it. Alright, with the camera selected, this line is our focus. This line. So at the beginning, we can focus the camera on the Rapunzel. Look at the Rapunzel layer, this layer here, and bring the camera focus on it by changing the value of focus distance. Just like this. Now when we bump up the aperture, it will blur out the background just like that. Now when we play animation here at 2 seconds, it should focus on the witch. So locate her and change the value of focus distance just like that. Also adjust the aperture and it's done. You can add an adjustment layer and apply a blur mask by adding a Gaussian blur effect. Add fire particles overlay and convert it to 3D. Position it just before the background and finally it will look like this. You can animate the opacity so it will start with a head opening. Also you can make it slow using time stretch and add 200 or so. Now copy and paste the camera flash effect we created in the previous set. We can animate back the camera to its original position. So add the keyframe here after the head closes. Then copy the initial keyframes, come back here and paste it. Do for the point light also. Press U to reveal the keyframes and add one keyframe here, copy the initial position and then move playhead here and paste it. Do the same for the camera. After adding the keyframes here, copy and paste the initial value here. We can adjust the position of this icon also. Can also add a new adjustment layer and add a vignette effect. You can add flying bats and sound effects to make it more creepy. It's up to you. Alright, now in this part we will add some text match cut kind of animation, but not exactly match cut. So we can prepare a text paragraph with some specific words that we want to emphasize. You can prepare it in Photoshop or we can directly do it in After Effects. Create new composition, text sort, 10 seconds in duration. Create another composition, text. Now add this texture to text composition and bring the scale down. Now we will copy and paste this text generated in ChatGPT. It has words like love, courage, hope, and so on. There are 4 paragraphs to create 4 slides. Alright, so add text using the text tool. Paste that text here. Select your font and adjust the font size, space, and indents just like this. You can also change the blending mode to multiply or darken. Alright, so this is for the first text slide. Duplicate it here in the source and replace the text. Do this for 2 more times or as per your script. Add turbulent displacement effect to the text, amount 20 and size 2. Copy it and paste it to other text layers. Now bring all the text comp here in the text sort. Change the order as per your script and switch off except the last one. Alright, go to view, select set ruler and add these 4 guides by dragging them from above and below in our canvas. Now scale the text comp and use the guide to align the specific word of importance. Repeat it for the other text as well. Alright, we don't need this guide. Move each layer 1 second from the previous layer. You can always modify the duration later if required. Now select the first text, hold Command or Control and press the left arrow 1, 2, 3. Press P for the position and add keyframe at this position. Move your playhead at the beginning and change the position at the bottom. Check the motion blur on. Select both the keyframe and press F9 for easy ease and edit the speed graph curve like this by dragging the handles. Do the same for the second and third. For the last text, animate the movement from the side. Now we will use the Gaussian blur to divert the attention to those words. Right click and add a new adjustment layer, rename it, select the ellipse tool and draw this mask over it. Resize it, add Gaussian blur effect on it, change the blur value, select the mask and invert it and increase the mask feather. Add one more adjustment layer, add vignette effect over it and change the value. Lastly, we can add the null object to add a subtle zoom effect. Parent all the text layer with null, press S for the scale and increase the value after adding the keyframe Come to the beginning and change it to 100. Select both the keyframes and press F9. Also, you can convert layers to 3D and zoom in. Play it and this will look like this. Okay, so now we will create a timeline animation and also a flying photo animation. Let's create a new composition and name it timeline. Let's create another one, call it time, width 6000 and height around 2600 or more. We will draw a timeline in this comp. To do that, select the pen tool, change fill to none and stroke size to 15 pixel. Keep holding the shift and create 2 points to add a straight line. Select align and align it properly. I am adding 6 vertical lines on this straight line, just like we draw a horizontal line. And then we will add many small vertical lines to complete our timeline shape. So add this first line here without selecting any layer. Align it horizontally and use Command or Control plus D to create 5 more copies. Now separate these lines either by dragging while holding the Shift key or from here. Make sure the first and last lines are all set. After you separate them, select all the vertical lines, make sure you are in selection and click Align Horizontal. Let us now add small vertical lines between the big lines. Select Pen tool, stroke size 10 and draw the small line without selecting any layer. Rename it. Make sure it is aligned properly and then duplicate it 3 times. Spread it between main lines and select and spread it equally using the method we just used. We forgot to add the turbulent displacement effect. Add it and change the value to 30 and 2. Paste it to other shapes as well. Alright, now select all small lines and duplicate them. Shift them here by dragging and move them here. Repeat it for the whole timeline. Select all the lines and pre-compose them as lines. Now let's add text. Type your text and choose the font of your choice. Adjust and align it. Now search and add the transform effect. Duplicate the text by Command or Control plus D. OK. Observe very carefully. Change the text by typing over here, and then use this anchor to move it. Same way add the rest of the years. Copy and paste the turbulent displacement effect. Also add a glow effect and play with the radius and intensity. Copy and paste this effect to the rest of the text and also to the lines. Select all the text and pre-compose. Call it text time. Now select these 2 comp and pre-compose them and call it timeline pre. Alright, now select the rectangle tool and draw a box by fill to solid white and stroke none. If needed, increase the composition height to 3000 or so. Draw a rectangle shape without selecting a layer as a separate shape and align it in the center. Select track matte to shape layer. Search for the effect, crop edges and apply over it. Increase the crop amount by around 30 or so as per your composition till the edges get cropped. Then you can play with the feather amount here so it will give these nice edges. Alright, now let us animate this timeline. Press P for the position and add initial keyframe. Also set the initial year just like this. Move your playhead to 2 or more seconds and change the position to the highlighted year you want to show. Select both the keyframes, press F9 for easy ease and edit the speed graph curve like this. Now add this time comp to timeline composition. Alright, let's add the background. So this is the background we used previously. Add it here and convert both the layers to 3D Add a new red solid, change the blending mode to multiply and convert it to 3D. Change to two views and add a new camera. Select these two layers and move them backward. Press S on the keyboard and increase the size. Move the time comb forward and scale it down. Adjust the position. We duplicate time comb to increase the glow intensity. Add fire particles overlay, convert it to 3D and adjust its scale and position. Change the blending mode to screen. Reduce the opacity by pressing T on the keyboard. So this is how it will look. You can increase or decrease the animation duration. We can add a slight zoom effect. Select camera, press R and Shift plus P for position and initial keyframe. And at 2 seconds change the Z value. Select both the keyframes and press F9. Select time and make it center. Now select the background and add the wave warp effect. Change the height to 7, width to 100 and wave speed to 0.1. And this will create this moving background which we have seen in Succulent's video. Cool, isn't it? We will add a vignette effect and Gaussian blur after we animate the flying photo and add it to this composition. Alright, create a new composition and name it Flying Photo 9020 by 1080 size. Click OK. Let us create another composition, call it Photos. Now we have these photos here, import them. Let's add the first image to the photo comp and scale it. Create a new white solid and place it behind the image. Go to Composition Settings, decrease the width just as the image and click OK. Select an image and use this rectangle tool to create a mask over this image, just like this. So it will look like a photo frame. Select the image and add a turbulent displacement effect. Change the amount to 30 and the size to 2. So we have this subtle change at the edges, which looks very cool. If you wish, you can add text here. Alright, so we have created one photo frame. You can duplicate photo comp in resource, replace the image and change the scale if needed. You can adjust the image, delete the mask and add a new mask as well. Alright, so we have now these three photos. Add them to flying photo comp and rearrange them. Now change the position of this layer to bottom like this. Move this photo to the top like this here. Convert all the layers to 3D. Right click and add a new camera. Change to two views, select and move all the layers back here and adjust the size and position of the images on the side. So this middle image you can see it is closer to the camera. Now for the animation, press P on the keyboard and add initial keyframes at the beginning. Move 9 seconds forward and set all the images in one line. Alright, let's play. Let us cut the duration. Here at 6 seconds. Select the keyframes and press F9. OK. Now let's add the grid PNG here. Convert it to 3D and move it here behind the images. Lower the opacity by pressing T on the keyboard. Alright, now this middle image is bigger as it is close to the camera. So at the second keyframe, change its Z value. And now it looks good. Now let us change the orientation. And for that, I am using the camera instead of null object. So select the camera and press R on the keyboard. Shift plus P for the position and add all the keyframes here at the final position, 6 seconds. Now with the playhead at the start, change the orientation value, also adjust the Y position, scale the grid. So this is how it looks. Let us move the camera a little backward. Select the photo, add a glow effect and change the radius and intensity. It would be great if you have a deep glow plugin, else only glow will work. Bump the radius 200, intensity 2.1 and composite original, change it to on top. Copy this effect and paste it into the other two photos. Open timeline comp and trim it here at 3 seconds using Option or Alt plus bracket. Now add the flying photo comp here, move it here and change the comp duration to 15 seconds. Oh, one thing we forgot. Go back to the flying photo, add a new adjustment layer, add a black and white effect, press T for the opacity, add the initial keyframe and change the opacity to 0 so that our image will turn color like in Saklan Khan's video at the end of the animation. Alright, back to the timeline. We can change the blending mode of this fire particles video to multiply. Right click and add a new adjustment layer. Rename it as a Gaussian. Select the ellipse tool. Double click to add mask. Add a Gaussian blur effect. Increase the blur amount. Invert mask and increase the feather amount. Just like that, add a new adjustment layer. Rename it as vignette. Add vignette effect and change the value. Done. Let's play. Alright, I have recorded this video searching on Google for the next scene. These are the images that we will use to animate using the blur effect, as shown in Saklan's video. Create a new composition, name it Search and Slide. Use these settings, 10 seconds would be enough, and click OK. Add that search video in this comp, use some fine texture to add over it, and resize it. Change the blending mode to multiply, and select both the layers and pre-compose. Let us convert this layer to 3D. Move it backward using the ZX. Then increase the size. Add a position keyframe at 3 seconds or so. Add a keyframe to orientation. Come back at the beginning and then change the orientation like this. Select both the keyframes and press F9 for easy ease. For the slide, let's create new composition. Let's call it slides. Bring the images you want to animate and arrange them 1 second apart in the composition. Alright, so this one is the first image. Hold the command or control key and press left arrow 1, 2, 3 and 4 to move 4 frames forward. Press P for the position and add keyframe here. Back to the start and lower its position out of the screen. Select both the keyframes, press F9 for ease, and then go to graph editor and change the curve like this using this handle. You can slow it down by moving apart the keyframes anytime if you feel. Select and copy these keyframes and paste them to the next layer. Repeat this for the rest of the layer. Select this layer and add Gaussian blur effect. Bump the value. Come halfway between these two frames and change it back to 0. Now copy these keyframes and paste them to the rest of the layers. Let us play it. Alright, now add the slides comp to search and slide comp and move it forward at around 3 seconds. Add a new adjustment layer, add a Gaussian blur effect over it, increase the blur, select the ellipse tool, double click to add a mask, invert it and bump the feather value. Add another adjustment layer and add a vignette effect over it and increase the amount. This is the final look. Now let us create the cinematic title for our last scene. So type your text here, choose the font of your liking and adjust their position, gaps and rest. Okay, so we have our text. Now I am selecting this text, then going to animate and add blur. Then from animator 1, click and property, add opacity and also add scale. Now make blur value 100, opacity 0 and scale to 150. Go to the range selector 1 and keyframe to offset. Change value to -100, forward to 2 seconds and change the value to 100. Alright, go to advanced, change the shape to ramp up. Click to switch on random and change the value of ease low to 50%. This is how it will play. Now again select animate and add tracking. Go to animator 2 and add a keyframe to tracking amount at the beginning, forward 3 seconds and change it to 5 or 10. This will cause smooth separation after initial animation like this. Repeat the same for the rest of the text. Select the text, add the glow effect and change the value that suits you. Then copy and paste. Let us add this background and scale it. Use the pen tool to create a mask like this and invert it. Convert it to 3D layer and create a 3D scene like this. Add a new camera, press P for the position and shift R for the rotation. Add all the initial keyframes, forward 5 seconds and move your camera forward. Adjust all other layers in the scene. Add a new solid, add a fractal noise effect, bump the contrast, convert it to 3D. Add a tint effect and change the white to something like that. Move this layer too far back behind the text layer. Then scale it. Click on evolution and click this little stopwatch against the random seed while holding the Alt or Option key to open the expression window and put this value, time into 5. You can also add any image and add it. Make it 3D, place it before the background and animate its opacity. Add a new adjustment layer, add the Gaussian blur effect over it. Increase the blur, select ellipse tool, double click to add mask, invert it and bump the feather value. Add another adjustment layer, add a vignette effect and increase the amount. This is the final result and you can add variations to it. Like you can convert text to pre-comp and use advanced 3D renderer to make the title 3D, adding fire particles, overlay, etc. Now before we go bye-bye, one final trick I want to show you that Saklan Khan has used this continuous loop. Alright, so this is the path I have already created with 2 points. If you don't know how to add this path or trim path, watch one of my this video which shows how to create the trim path. It is shown in this I button. So playhead at the start, add a keyframe to offset, move forward 2 or 3 seconds and change the value to minus number. Let's play. You can play with the duration, speed using the keyframes and playing with the offset value. Let's play. You can play with the duration and speed using the keyframes and playing with the offset value. For continuous loop, click offset stopwatch while holding the Alt or Option key and add the expression loop out in the expression window. And that is it. I hope you like this video. If you want to know anything further or if I have missed anything in this video, let me know in the comment. See you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.